The Lonely Princess. The great alien palace was filled with shining light and cold silence. Tall pillars of crystal reached high into the sky, glowing with colors of blue and silver. The court was full of nobles, warriors, and elders from many alien worlds. They had gathered for one reason: the choosing of a suitor for the tiny alien princess. She sat alone on a throne carved from living stone. She was small, barely 3 feet tall, with silver hair and eyes that glowed like stars. Her beauty was not in her size, but in the light of her spirit. Yet none of the nobles cared. To them she was weak. To them she was nothing. One by one, alien suitors stepped forward. Their armor shone, their voices boomed, and their faces were proud. Each looked upon the princess, and each turned away. "She is too small," whispered one. "She has no power," sneered another. "She cannot rule beside me," said a third. The princess kept her head high, but inside her heart was breaking. Every word of rejection cut her like a blade. Every laugh from the crowd was a wound she could not hide. She had dreamed of this day since she was young. She had hoped someone would see her not as weak, but as worthy. But the hall grew colder with each passing moment. The suitors lined up, and all of them turned their backs. At last, the High Elder rose from his golden chair. His voice thundered through the chamber. "No more suitors remain," he said. "The princess has been judged unworthy. The crown shall remain without a partner." Gasps filled the room. The princess lowered her eyes, fighting tears. Her people looked away in shame. The court had decided her fate, loneliness forever. And then it happened. The great doors of the hall creaked, then slammed open with a sound like thunder. The wind rushed in, carrying dust and the scent of a world beyond. All eyes turned to the doorway. A figure stood there, not an alien, not a noble, a human. He was tall, 6 feet in height, towering over the aliens who filled the chamber. His shoulders were broad, his steps were steady, and his eyes burned with quiet fire. His clothing was simple, not like the shining robes of the nobles. But there was strength in his walk and a mystery in his presence. Whispers spread across the hall. "A human, here? This is madness. How dare he step into this place?" The human did not bow. He did not flinch. Slowly he walked forward, each step echoing against the crystal floor. The alien guards reached for their weapons, but the High Elder raised a hand. The chamber fell silent once again. The princess lifted her gaze. Her heart skipped. She had never seen a human before, not here, not in this grand court. She had heard stories, yes, stories of a strange species that survived against all odds, small compared to other races but fierce, weak in body but strong in spirit. And now one stood before her. The human stopped at the foot of the throne. He looked up at the princess, and unlike all the others, he did not laugh. He did not sneer. He did not turn away. Instead, he spoke. His voice was deep, steady, and simple. "I have come," he said, "to stand for the princess." The court exploded in laughter. The nobles roared with mocking voices. "A human? A suitor? Impossible! He has no power, no bloodline, no right." The princess felt her face grow warm. She expected the human to retreat, to flee under the weight of so much scorn, but he did not move. He stood firm. The High Elder glared down. "You are not of our kind. Why should this court allow you to stand before the princess?" The human raised his head higher. His words were few, but they cut through the noise like a blade. "Because I see what you do not. I see her worth." The laughter stopped. For a moment, silence filled the air. The princess's eyes widened. No one, not even her own people, had spoken for her that way. No one had looked at her with respect, not pity. Something stirred inside her. A spark of hope. The nobles recovered quickly, their anger rising. "If you claim such boldness, human, then prove it. No weak outsider may take a place in this hall without trial." The princess's breath caught. She knew the trials. They were harsh, cruel tests of strength, wisdom, and courage. No alien suitor had passed them in years. For a human to try, it was certain death. But the human only nodded. His voice was calm. "Then give me your trials," he said. "I will not step back." The chamber grew tense. The princess's hands gripped the arms of her throne. For the first time in her life, she did not feel alone. For the first time, she saw someone willing to fight for her, not for power, not for status, but for her. The court waited, breathless, as the human stood tall before the throne. And in that moment, the story of the tiny princess and the human truly began. The human's bold words echoed across the hall. "Then give me your trials." The nobles could not believe it. The alien council erupted into shouts of anger and disbelief. He insults our traditions. He cannot survive a single trial. A human is weak. This is madness. The High Elder raised his staff and silence fell once more. His eyes, dark as stone, studied the tall stranger. You dare to enter our court. You dare to claim a place at the princess's side. Then you will face the first test. If you fail, you will leave in shame, or in death. The princess's heart pounded in her chest. She wanted to speak, to protest, but her lips would not move. 1,000 voices of the court drowned her out. Yet inside she whispered the words she could not say. Please, do not die for me. The human only gave a nod. His face was calm, his eyes sharp. The guard stepped forward and led him out of the great hall. The crowd followed, their voices buzzing like a storm. The princess rose from her throne, her small figure almost lost in the ocean of taller bodies. Still her gaze never left the stranger, the arena of stone. They entered the trial grounds, a vast arena carved deep into the mountain. The walls glowed with strange fire, and the air smelled of dust and metal. At the center lay a massive alien weapon. It was a hammer, taller than the human himself, forged of black iron and silver veins. The elder spoke. This is the hammer of the ancients. No suitor may claim honor unless he can raise it. Only the strong may rule. If you cannot lift it, you will crawl back to your fragile world. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Many remembered alien suitors who had tried and failed. Even warriors twice the human size had broken their backs under the weight. The human stepped forward. He looked at the hammer, then at his own bare hands. His clothes were simple, his arms not like the thick muscles of the alien warriors, yet he wrapped his fingers around the cold metal handle. The crowd jeered. He cannot move it. He will break in half. The human tightened his grip. He pulled. The hammer did not move. His arms shook, his back strained. Sweat began to bead across his skin. A few nobles laughed louder. The princess clenched her fists, her nails biting into her palms. Every part of her wanted to run forward to stop the test, but she could not. Her people would never allow it. The human's face twisted in effort, but he did not let go. His knees bent, his muscles trembled, yet he pulled again. The hammer gave the faintest sound, a scrape against the stone floor. The crowd gasped. He roared, pulling with all the strength in his body. The hammer lifted an inch, then 2. His arms shook like they would tear apart. His body screamed for rest, but his eyes burned with fire. At last he raised it fully, high above the ground. The arena fell into silence. No alien laughed now. The princess's eyes shone with tears. Her heart beat faster than ever before. She had never seen anyone fight so hard, for her. The human staggered, his breath heavy, but he did not drop the hammer until he had lowered it with care back onto the stone. Only then did he release it and stand tall once more. The second challenge. The elder's voice cut the silence. Strength is not enough. Courage must also be tested. Another gate opened. From the darkness crawled a beast. It was covered in black scales, its jaws dripping with fire. Its body was larger than 10 men, its claws sharp enough to tear stone apart. The nobles cheered. This will be his end. The beast will devour him. The princess's small hand rose to her mouth. Fear filled her chest. No human could survive such a monster. The beast roared and charged. The ground shook under its weight. The human had no weapon but his will. He ran forward, dodging the first strike of its claws. The crowd gasped. No one had ever dared to meet the beast head-on without armor. The fight was desperate. The beast struck again and again. Each time the human rolled aside, barely escaping. His body was quick, his mind sharp. Where the beast was strong, he was fast. Where the beast was wild, he was calm. At last the creature reared back, its mouth glowing with fire. The human grabbed a broken spear from the arena floor. He leapt, driving it deep into the beast's soft underbelly. A cry of pain filled the air and the creature collapsed, defeated. The arena was silent again. No one had expected a human to survive. No one had believed it was possible. The princess pressed a hand to her heart. For the first time she smiled. Not a smile of politeness, not a smile of duty, but of hope. The verdict, the High Elder spoke, his voice low and heavy. The human has passed the first test. But this is only the beginning. Greater trials await. The crowd buzzed in shock, in anger, in fear. Yet one truth could not be denied. The human had stood where others had fallen. The princess lifted her gaze. Her eyes met his. And in that silent moment she knew this was no ordinary man. This was the one who might finally change her fate. The human had passed the first test. The nobles no longer laughed as loudly. Their whispers now carried fear. Some spoke of him as a fool, but others began to wonder if this strange outsider might be more than he appeared. The princess returned to her chambers that night, but her heart did not rest. She could not forget the sight of him lifting the hammer, nor the moment when he stood unbroken before the beast. For the first time in her life she felt a flicker of hope. But in the shadows of the palace not all shared her feelings. The whispering corridors. The palace was vast, with endless halls of crystal and stone. Light fell from glowing orbs that floated above, but shadows clung to every corner, and in those shadows a figure moved silently, the assassin. No one in the court spoke his name aloud. He was said to be the blade of the unseen council, those who feared change, those who wished the princess to remain weak and alone. If the human won the next trial, he would break their power. They could not allow it. The assassin watched from the dark arches, his eyes following the princess as she sat near her balcony. She gazed at the stars, small and bright against the endless night. He smiled coldly. Soon her hope would die. A walk at dusk, the next day the princess left her chambers. She walked through the gardens of her palace, their glowing flowers casting gentle light. Yet she was not alone. The human walked a few steps behind her, guarded not by command but by choice. "Why do you follow me?" she asked softly without turning her head. "Because someone must," he replied. His voice was steady, not proud, not fearful. She glanced back. His tall form moved easily among the alien trees, though they bent low against his shoulders. She studied him carefully. Most suitors had only cared for glory or wealth. But this one, this human, spoke little and boasted less. Still, she could not stop her doubt. "You know the trials will grow harder. Why risk your life for me?" He paused, his eyes meeting hers. "Because no one else does." The words sank deep into her chest. Simple, honest, true. But as they walked, unseen eyes followed from the shadows of the garden. A blade glimmered faintly in the assassin's hand. The silent strike. That night, as the palace grew quiet, the princess felt uneasy. The halls were too still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. She returned to her room, but her thoughts were restless. Suddenly, a whisper of movement stirred the air. She turned, her eyes widening. A dark figure slipped through the balcony, silent as smoke. The assassin had come. A blade gleamed in his hand, its edge glowing faintly with poison. The princess gasped, stepping back. "Guards!" she cried, but her voice was too late. The assassin lunged forward, and then a shadow moved faster. The human burst through the doorway, his eyes sharp, his body low and ready. Somehow he had sensed it. Somehow he had known. His arm caught the assassin's strike, the blade slicing across his skin but missing its mark. The princess screamed. The assassin twisted, striking again. The human fought barehanded, blocking, dodging, struggling against a foe trained in the arts of silent death. The clash was fierce. The assassin moved like smoke, but the human stood firm like stone. The blade cut his arm, his side, but still he did not fall. He forced the assassin back step by step until the shadow slipped once more into the darkness of the balcony and vanished into the night. The aftermath. The princess rushed forward. "You are bleeding!" The human pressed a hand against the cut, his breath heavy. "Better me than you." Her small hands trembled as she brought water and cloth. She tended to him in silence, her eyes never leaving his face. He winced but made no sound. At last she whispered, "Why did you protect me? You owe me nothing." He looked at her, his voice quiet but unshaken. "Because you deserve more than silence, more than fear, and because I gave my word." Her eyes softened. For the first time in her life, someone stood for her not out of duty, not out of command, but out of choice. In the council's shadows far below the palace, in hidden chambers, the assassin returned to his masters. He knelt before cloaked figures who whispered in anger. The human survives. He grows stronger with each trial. He must be destroyed before the final challenge. The assassin bowed his head. "I will not fail again." The council's voices merged into one. "See that you do not. The princess must remain alone or our power will fade." Their words drifted through the dark halls like poison. Plans were already forming. The human had defied their first attempt. The next would be deadlier. The princess's heart in her chamber. The princess sat beside the human as he rested. She watched his chest rise and fall, his face calm even in sleep. Her world had always told her she was weak, unwanted, forgotten. But here, at her side, lay the proof that someone believed otherwise. She touched her chest, her heart beating faster. She did not yet understand what it meant, but she knew one truth. This human was different. And though danger lurked in every shadow of the palace, she would not let him fight alone. The palace was never quiet after the attack. Guards doubled their watch, nobles whispered in fear, and the High Elder grew restless. Yet no one spoke of the assassin. It was as if the shadow had never entered. The court would not admit its weakness. But the princess knew the truth. She had seen the blade, had felt death's cold breath. And she knew one thing with certainty. Without the human, she would not be alive. That night, she could not sleep. She walked the silent corridors until she found him sitting alone in the training hall. His arm was still wrapped in cloth from the wound, yet he sat tall, sharpening a broken spearhead as if waiting for danger to return. "You should rest," she said softly. He lifted his eyes to her. "And leave you unguarded?" She lowered her gaze. No one had ever cared for her in such a way. Even her people, even her council, had always left her alone. Slowly she stepped closer. "Come with me," she whispered. The hidden path she led him through the winding palace halls. At first he thought she walked in silence, but then he noticed her pace was light, almost secret. They passed tapestries older than kingdoms, pillars carved with glowing runes. Finally, she pushed open a small door half hidden by vines. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To the only place that is mine," she said. Beyond the door stretched a tunnel of living stone, narrow and winding. Strange lights glowed along the walls, like stars trapped in crystal. At the end, the passage opened, and the human stopped in awe. The garden of light, it was a garden unlike anything he had ever seen. Trees of silver leaves swayed gently, though no wind blew. Flowers glowed in soft shades of blue, red, and gold, filling the air with a sweet, warm scent. Pools of water shimmered with their own light, and creatures shaped like tiny sparks floated above the blossoms. "This is—" the human began, searching for words. "The heart garden," the princess finished. "No one but me enters here. Not even the council knows all its paths." He looked at her. "Why bring me?" Her small hands brushed a silver flower. "Because you saw me when no one else would. I wanted you to see this too." For a long time they walked in silence, the garden glowing around them like a dream. The princess speaks at last. The princess sat beside one of the glowing pools. Her reflection stared back at her, small and fragile. She hugged her knees and spoke, her voice low. "All my life they have called me weak, too small, too powerless. Even my crown feels heavy, as if it was never meant for me." She turned her eyes to the human. "Do you not see it too? That I am unworthy?" He sat beside her, his tall frame bending low. He looked into the water, then at her. "I see what they do not. You are not weak. You are still here. Even when they turn their backs, you do not fall. That is strength." Her breath caught. No one had ever said such words to her. Not once. "Strength," she whispered, almost tasting the word. He nodded. "Strength is not size. Strength is standing when the world tries to break you." Her eyes grew wet, though no tears fell. For the first time she felt something inside her begin to change. The watching eyes, but they were not alone. Far above, among the branches of the glowing trees, the assassin watched silently. His orders had been clear. Wait, learn, strike when the human was weakest. The sight of them together only deepened his hatred. He whispered into a small device on his wrist. "The bond grows. Soon they will stand as one. I will break them before that day." His figure slipped back into the shadows unseen, a moment of light. The human leaned back, staring at the stars above the garden. They seemed brighter here, as if the walls of stone could not hold them. "You have shown me your secret place," he said. "Then let me share mine." He picked up a small stone from the ground. With a quiet laugh, he skipped it across the glowing pool. It bounced once, twice, 3 times before sinking. The princess tilted her head. "You play with water?" "On my world," he said, "children skip stones across rivers. It is a simple thing, but it reminds me of home." She picked up her own stone and tried. It sank at once. She frowned. He chuckled softly. Again, she tried again. This time it bounced once before falling. Her eyes widened in surprise, and for the first time in many years she laughed, a clear, gentle sound that echoed across the garden. The human smiled quietly. He did not speak, but in that moment he knew the garden had given her more than peace. It had given her joy. The omen, but as the laughter faded, the ground trembled. A ripple spread through the glowing pool, shaking the lights of the garden. The princess froze. "This is wrong," she whispered. "The heart garden never shakes." The human rose to his feet, his eyes scanning the shadows. Something stirred deep in the earth, something ancient, something angry. The princess stood beside him, fear in her eyes. The garden is alive. It warns us. Danger comes, and in that instant, both of them knew. The trials of strength were nothing compared to the trials yet to come. The heart garden's warning lingered in the princess's mind, long after she returned to her chambers. The trembling earth, the rippling light, the way the air had grown cold, it was no accident. The garden was alive, and it had whispered of danger. That night, the palace slept under a heavy silence. The stars above the crystal towers shone faintly, yet the halls below were darker than usual. Guards stood at their posts, but unease clung to them like a shadow. The princess lay awake in her bed, her heart racing, unable to shake the feeling that something was coming. And something was. The silent invasion far beyond the palace walls, black shapes moved in the night. Cloaked figures scaled the towers with hands like claws. Their weapons glowed faintly with poison light. They were no simple thieves. They were the assassin's brothers, summoned from the darkest corners of the empire. The council had given their order. The human must die, and the princess must remain alone. Inside, the assassin himself slipped once more through the balcony of the princess's chamber. His eyes gleamed with cruel patience. But this time he was not alone. 6 shadows followed. The princess sat up suddenly, her body cold with fear. She sensed them before she saw them. The figures moved closer, blades ready. She opened her mouth to scream us, but a voice cut through the silence. "Stay behind me." The human stepped out of the darkness. He had been waiting. The battle begins. The assassins struck at once. Blades flashed in the moonlight, fast as lightning. The human grabbed a chair, using it like a shield, blocking the first strike. The wood shattered, but he swung the broken leg like a club, knocking one assassin back. The princess scrambled to her feet, her small body pressed against the corner of the room. Her heart hammered as the fight raged before her eyes. The assassins moved as one, circling him, striking from every side. Their movements were sharp, trained, deadly. But the human was faster than they expected. He ducked, dodged, twisted through every blow. His fists cracked against bone, his foot slammed into ribs, and his broken weapon struck with desperate strength. Blood ran down his arm, but he did not fall. The assassin's trap, the leader of the killers, the same shadow who had tried before, watched carefully. He saw the human's strength but also his weakness. He was only one man. "Hold him," the leader snarled. 2 assassins leapt forward, pinning the human's arms. Another struck his chest, sending him crashing into the wall. The princess cried out, rushing forward, but the leader's blade stopped her inches from her throat. "Stay still, little one," the assassin hissed, "or watch your guardian bleed." The human struggled, blood on his lips, his chest heaving. He looked at the princess, and even in pain his eyes were steady. "Don't fear," he whispered. The fire within. The assassins raised their blades, ready to strike him down, but the human roared, breaking free with sudden strength. He drove his elbow into one, his head into another, his body moving with raw fury. He seized a fallen blade from the ground and slashed across the air, forcing the killers back. The leader lunged again, their blades clashing. Sparks lit the chamber. The human's body bled and shook, but his will was unbroken. He fought like a storm, each strike born not from training but from something deeper, something the assassins could not understand. The princess saw it too. He was fighting not for himself, not for glory, but for her. The turning point at last, the assassins faltered. One fell, then another, groaning on the floor. The leader hissed in rage. His eyes turned to the princess. If he could not kill the human, he would destroy her instead. He darted forward, his blade flashing toward her heart. But the human was faster. He threw himself in front of her, taking the strike across his side. The blade cut deep, but he did not stop. With his last strength, he drove his fist into the assassin's face, sending him crashing through the balcony rail. The leader tumbled into the night, vanishing into the dark below. The remaining killers fled into the shadows. Their mission broken, the aftermath. The room was silent again, save for the princess's ragged breath. She fell to her knees beside the human. Blood soaked his side, but he still stood tall, swaying but unbroken. "You fool," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Why would you take such a wound for me?" He smiled faintly, his face pale. "Because no one else will." She pressed her hands to his wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. Her tears fell onto his skin, glowing faintly in the moonlight. The court awakens moments later. The guards rushed in. They froze at the sight. The assassins gone, the balcony shattered, and the human standing bloody but alive beside the princess. The nobles who arrived after gasped. Whispers spread like fire. He fought them alone. He saved her life again. Perhaps he is not weak after all. The princess looked up, her voice trembling but strong. "He is my protector. No matter what you say, I will not let him be cast aside." The court could no longer deny what they had seen with their own eyes. The human had faced death at midnight, and he had not only survived, he had saved their princess. But deep in the shadows of the palace, the council whispered once more, "He grows too strong. If he lives through the final trial, everything we control will be broken." Their voices hardened into one deadly promise. The human must not reach the end alive. The attack at midnight had changed everything. The nobles could no longer laugh at the human. They had seen him bleed for the princess. They had seen him stand against assassins and survive, but respect in the palace was never given easily. Some nobles whispered that he was strong, others whispered that he was dangerous, and the council, those hidden powers in the dark, whispered only one thing: he must not win. The High Elder called for the final trial. His voice was heavy as stone. "The suitor will face our champion. No greater test exists. If the human survives, he may stand beside the princess. If he falls, his bones will join the dust of this arena." The court gasped. Even the bravest aliens had feared this trial. For the champion was no ordinary warrior. The champion appears. The arena of stone trembled as the gates opened. From the shadows stepped a giant of iron flesh. His skin shimmered like steel, his eyes glowed with red fire. He carried a blade the size of a pillar, forged to crush armies. The nobles cheered. "The Iron Champion? No human can stand against him." The princess's breath caught in her chest. She wanted to scream to stop this madness, but her voice would never be heard over the roar of the crowd. She could only watch. The human walked into the arena. His clothes were torn, his sides still wrapped in blood-stained cloth. Compared to the champion, he looked small, fragile, weak, yet his steps were steady, his eyes unbroken. The battle begins, the gong rang, and the champion struck first. His blade fell like thunder, splitting stone where the human had stood a heartbeat earlier. Dust exploded into the air and the crowd roared. The human rolled aside, his movements sharp and fast. He had no weapon but a broken spear, scavenged once again from the ground. He gripped it tightly, facing the towering warrior. The champion laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You are nothing, human. One strike will end you." The blade fell again, faster than before. The human dodged, the wind of the swing nearly tearing him apart. He darted forward, striking the giant's side with his spear, but the weapon snapped against iron skin. The crowd jeered. "He cannot even scratch him." But the human did not retreat. He circled, his eyes sharp, his body moving with patience. He studied every motion, every step, every weakness. The struggle. The champion pressed harder, each strike shaking the arena. The human dodged again and again, his body growing slower, his wounds aching. Blood dripped from his side. His breath came in gasps. The princess gripped the edge of her throne. "Please stand," she begged silently. "Please don't fall." The human spear was gone, broken to splinters. He was empty-handed now. The champion raised his blade high for the final strike. "Die!" the iron voice roared. The blade crashed down, but the human moved at the last instant, throwing himself forward. The giant's sword slammed into the ground, stuck deep in stone. Gasps filled the arena. The turning point, with desperate strength, the human climbed the champion's arm, leaping onto his shoulder. His fist struck again and again into the giant's glowing eye. The champion roared, shaking the ground, trying to tear him free. The human held on, his fists breaking skin, driving deeper until at last the iron eye shattered. The giant stumbled, roaring in pain. The nobles were silent now. For the first time, they feared the human might win. The champion ripped him free and hurled him across the arena. The human crashed hard into the stone, blood bursting from his mouth. He did not rise at once. The princess's heart froze. "Get up," she whispered. "Please, and get up." Mercy slowly, painfully, the human rose. His body swayed, but his eyes still burned. He picked up a shard of the champion's broken armor, its edge sharp as a blade. The champion staggered toward him, blind in one eye, weak, but still deadly. The two clashed once more. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, the human stood above the fallen giant, the shard pressed against his throat. One final strike would end it. The arena held its breath. But the human did not kill him. He threw the shard aside. "I fight to prove myself, not to destroy you." The silence was deeper than thunder. Even the High Elder leaned forward in shock. "The princess speaks." The princess rose from her throne, her voice shaking but strong. "Do you see now? He is greater than strength, greater than blood, greater than fear. He has shown mercy where others show only death." The nobles muttered. Some bowed their heads in shame, others in respect. For the first time, they could not deny what stood before them. The human had passed the final challenge. In the shadows, but deep in the hidden chambers of the palace, the council's fury grew. He lives still. He defeats even the champion. If the princess claims him, our hold will break. Their voices merged into one whisper of hate. He must not live to see the dawn. The princess, unaware of the council's final plan, rushed to the arena floor. She reached up, taking the human's bloody hand in hers. And though the world shook with fear and anger around them, she knew one truth at last. Her protector was not only strong. He was worthy. The arena still shook with silence. The nobles stared in disbelief. The warriors could not speak, and the High Elder himself lowered his staff. The human had done the impossible. He had faced the Iron Champion, a warrior no alien dared to fight, and he had won. But what shocked them most was not his victory. It was his mercy. He had chosen not to kill. The princess stood beside him, her small hand holding his bloodied one. Her voice carried across the stone. "You all saw it. He fights not for power. He fights not for pride. He fights because he believes I am worthy. That is true strength." Her words hung in the air. No one dared laugh this time. The councils raged far below the palace. In chambers of darkness, the secret council raged. Their whispers struck the air like knives. He defies every trial. He bends the court to his will. If he lives, the princess will rise in power. We will lose everything. The assassin knelt once more. His face was scarred from the battles, but his eyes burned with hate. "Then I will strike again. I will finish what I began." The cloaked figures leaned forward. "Do not fail. Tonight he dies." The night of celebration in the palace above, the nobles gathered for a feast. Tables were heavy with glowing fruits, silver wine, and food from 100 worlds. Music filled the air, though the mood was tense. Some nobles toasted the human, others glared with envy. The princess sat proudly at the high table, her gaze never leaving her protector. He sat quietly beside her, eating little, speaking less. His eyes searched the shadows, always watchful. She leaned closer, her voice soft. "You should celebrate. You have won." His answer was simple. "The trials are over, but the danger is not." Her heart tightened. She knew he was right. The last betrayal as the night grew late. The palace torches dimmed. The music softened. And then the shadows moved. The assassin struck like lightning, leaping from the rafters with a blade of black fire. He aimed not for the princess this time, but for the human's heart. The hall erupted in screams. Nobles scattered. Guards rushed forward too late. The blade pierced deep. The human gasped, falling to his knees. Blood spilled across the stone floor. The princess cried out, her voice breaking the hall. "No!" The assassin raised his blade again, ready to end it. But the human's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with iron strength. His eyes, though dim with pain, still burned. "Not tonight," he growled. With a final surge, he twisted the blade aside and drove his fist into the assassin's chest. The shadow fell back, crashing against the wall, broken and still. The hall fell silent once more. The choice. The princess rushed to the human's side, cradling him in her small arms. "Stay with me," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "Please, do not leave me now." His body shook, his breath shallow. Yet his hand rose, brushing her cheek. "I stood, because you believed in me," he said weakly. That is all I needed." The princess's tears fell onto his wound, glowing faintly in the light. She looked up at the court, her voice trembling but strong. "You all see it now. He has given everything. For me, for this throne, for this kingdom. If you still call him unworthy, then you call me unworthy too." The hall was silent. Slowly one noble bowed. Then another, and another, until the whole court bent their heads. The high elder's voice rose, steady and heavy. "Then let it be written. From this night forth the human shall stand as protector of the princess, and the bond between them shall be honored by all. The true strength." The human tried to rise, but his body was weak. The princess held him firmly. "No more trials. No more blood. You have already proved yourself." His eyes softened. "Strength is not power," he whispered. "It is standing. For those who cannot stand alone." And then, with the last of his will, he stood beside her. His body swayed, his wounds bled, but he stood tall before the court. The hall erupted in thunderous cries, not of laughter, not of scorn, but of respect. The new dawn the next morning. The sun rose over the crystal towers, casting golden light across the palace. For the first time, the princess did not feel small. She did not feel weak. She stood on the balcony, her protector at her side, and she knew her world had changed forever. The council's shadows still lurked in silence, but their grip was broken. The princess was no longer alone. She looked up at the human, her voice soft but sure. "Together, we will face whatever comes." He nodded, his eyes steady as ever. Together. And so began a new story, not of weakness, not of rejection, but of strength, hope, and a bond that even the stars could not break.